The Celtic Story is a smash hit theatre production that charts the unique history of the famous Celtic Football Club. First performed in 1988 as part of the iconic club's centenary celebrations, it returns to the stage with a brand new song penned specially for the show. Celtic did it first. The Celtic Story, from August 31st till September 16th at Glasgow's SEC Armadillo. Tickets available at ticketmaster.co.uk.
That lot are absolutely terrible, aren't they? Welcome to this week's episode of 20 Minute Tims. Stephen and Melly.
Hello there.
Oh, we're back. Brendan's back. Celtic are back. Rangers are back. Loser Rangers are back. Let me ask you an honest, serious question here. When that lineup dropped, how did you feel?
I don't want to be honest about that.
How did you feel?
Oh, well, I can't be anything other than brutally honest here. I was crestfallen when I saw the lineup come out. I was defeated. I thought there was absolutely no chance. But I think when we did our build up to the game on Patreon ahead of 45 minutes before kickoff, we went on. I said, look, barring some sort of miracle here, everyone pray to the God you believe in that we can get some sort of result in here, because I saw things like Liam Scales, I saw David Turnbull, all the things I didn't want to see in that lineup, and I thought we were going to be seriously up against it here. I came away from the game thinking, and we'll get into all this stuff, of course, but I came away from the game thinking that was nothing short of the miracle we asked for. And then the cold light of day, maybe we just beat a really crap football team over the weekend.
It can be both. It can be absolutely both.
It can be both, but enjoyable. Either way, take your pick.
Look, we got all the things we enjoyed, Melly. We got an against the odds win at Ibrox against Rangers. We got then after it the Rangers fan fallout. And honestly, let me ask you a honest question. We've not rehearsed this. What have you spent all day doing?
Oh, made a wee thread on Discord. People started filling it of pain and
reading Rangers pain on the Rangers forums, listening to the Rangers podcasts. In many ways, if you're not going to subject yourself to some serious Rangers pain after a win like that, you're doing it wrong.
No, this was a special one, wasn't it? A special one, because I'm like Stephen, I didn't think Celtic had a chance of winning. Everything I seen in the lineup gave me cause to be concerned, and then for every point I make, you can just insert the Limmy. I forgot how shite they are after every single point, because I just looked at it from a Celtic point of view and thought, we are going to struggle here. I thought we were going to struggle to stop Rangers scoring. I thought we were going to struggle to score. And I thought, well, our midfield and David Turnbull with the centre halves, full-backs, wingers, I thought, where are we going to get this victory from? And then when we went out and played, I thought, do you know what? I forgot how bad they are. And also, you can forget, like, Celtic can slug it sometimes, and they went out and done that. And also, we've got a much better manager than. In fact, we've got a manager, a proper manager. Yeah. Somebody with repute, somebody with a reputation, and somebody with tactical nuance. And we've seen what happens in the
that was a Brendan masterclass. I don't want to over-egg how bad Rangers were, because part of them looking so bad was how good we were, and they're not going to get a better chance. I don't know what they want. What more do you want? We've got players out. We've got 5th and 6th choice centre halves. You got all the tickets for all the seats. You got all your own fans. You spent fortunes in the summer.
Good tifo.
Good. They got one of those tifos. If that's what they're going to do with the tickets, let them have it. Honestly, but there's just nothing you can do when you come up against a manager of the quality of Brendan Rodgers. And for me, that was a Brendan Rodgers masterclass, because it would have been so easy to send the players out to Ibrox to say, look, boys, get through this, and then we'll pick it up. No matter what happens, we'll pick it up throughout the rest of the season. But that's not what Brendan set his team out to do. And we've got a catchphrase in this podcast, even you almost have forgot.
Yeah.
And we use it when a player pulls out a performance who's been performing pretty bad, and we can maybe discuss some of that. But that was a Brendan Rodgers, you almost have forgot. That is, to me, the same mentality that when you go a goal down at Ibrox, you put on an attacker. There was no way Brendan Rodgers was going to do anything other than go out there to win that football game. And he pulled off a plan and a game plan that achieved it.
It's the reason he was brought back to the club, isn't it? It's the reason he was the number one candidate, the best candidate for the job the entire time. We had the debates at the time as to whether you really want to go back down that road, rip open all those old wounds when it came to Brendan Rodgers. But a result like that is exactly why he's back at the club. And it's not a fluke. He's done it before. You've already referenced it, that 3-2 game at Ibrox many years ago now. It's what he does. He manages to get results when the chips are down. It's time to roll out the big potatoes and So that's that's exactly what Brendan Rodgers did. Look, was it an amazing performance? No, but as you said, Melly, they dug in, they fought for it, they worked hard and got the result. Rangers should be ashamed of themselves, quite frankly, because you've already said, look, they'll never get a better chance. No. I reckon there's a good chance that...
I thought that was just a statement.
yeah.
I was wondering what he was referring to specifically, because there's a number of reasons why they ought to be ashamed of themselves.
Exactly. That's the reason they should be ashamed of themselves this weekend. But there's every chance that, depending on how this season goes, if it's a very successful one for Celtic, which it potentially can be, we'll be talking about that game in 10 years' time as the day we turned up to Ibrox with half a team. Nobody gave us a chance at all. And do you know what? There'll be many people out there listening, watching to this, thinking, no, I kept the faith. I was confident. That's admirable. I respect that. But I don't think anyone thought, right, we're going to go in here, we're going to control large parts of the game, we're going to restrict them a few chances, defend with their lives for the most part of the second half, well, the second part of the second half, and then we're going to win 1-0 with that decimated defence, the defence that nobody wanted to see in there, without even the help of our emergency defender that we brought in just a few days ago. We got an emergency defender.
As soon as he landed, everyone thought, this is for the Rangers game.
Break glass for Nat Phillips, and he still didn't turn off for this game. So, as I say, I fully respect. I got it wrong. I counted Celtic completely out. I just thought, and especially, see when they scored after 35 seconds or whatever it was, and granted, it was massively offside. It wasn't even a debate, but I didn't know that at the time. I was sitting watching that on the couch and thought, oh, this is going to be a long, long day. This is as bad as it can possibly get. This is even worse than I thought it was going to be, and this is going to be a slog. But what a performance it was. Gritty is how I'd describe it.
We had to dig deep.
Yeah.
And individual players had to dig deep. And I think the focus mainly was on the defence. And after the game, Liam Scales pulled out a man of the match performance. And I think Liam Scales was the main person that we were worried about going into the game. I mean, I'm reluctant to say it on the podcast because of how much goodwill there is for the guy. The guy played his absolute heart out.
Yeah.
Liam Scales left nothing on that pitch, and that's what you need to do in games like that. That's what we required before the game. When I saw the lineup, I thought we need our big players to make big contributions to get through this game. But what we also needed was players like Liam Scales, limited guys that we were kind of worried about, to leave absolutely nothing out there. And that's what he did. I thought he struggled in the first half.
Yeah.
Really, really struggled in the first half. In the second half, he managed to see the game out. Lagerbielke as well. Look, he's a young player. He's just arrived at the club. How many training sessions could he have had? There's no way we're expecting to throw him in against that game. Bit of a boo-boo and a let-off for what the Rangers goal that we're going to talk about. But I just think at the end of the day, those two guys did the absolute best you could ask for them.
Yeah, they did. And a lot of the time with Celtic, maybe under Ange, you thought, can this team suffer? And they done that at Ibrox in Ange's first season and came away with a 2-1 victory. And for Celtic to go there and get this victory so early on and really suffer in that match at times, I don't think they were under sustained pressure a lot of it. But Rangers, I don't think they had a shot in the first half. But the second half, you knew where Celtic were going to be up against it. And you asked us before the game, look, what's it going to take for Celtic to win? And we looked and thought, the big players have to play well. I think we said, look, Kyogo, Matt O'Reilly and CALLUM McGregor are going to have really good games. They did. Joe Hart had to maybe have a Fraser Forster game. Didn't quite pan out with that, but he made some really important saves. Probably his best game for Celtic, maybe I'd say. And even then, he didn't have to do that well. That's not a slight on him. So we had to get all that stuff. But with the defence as well, it was just one of those ones where you have to get through the game. And while there might be some revision on Liam Scales and that, I don't think it really changes much about the players, what we think of the players, because how many times are they going to be asked to do that sort of game? In Scotland, it's going to be Celtic will have the ball a lot of time. I thought Scales and Lagerbielke really struggled in the first half. Rangers got in behind that sort of left back and left hand centre half position because Liam Scales was running, trying to attack balls, not winning it, and the ball was going over. Happened a couple of times. Lagerbielke obviously get caught on the ball. Second half, they kind of stopped that and got a bit more solid. I think it must have been something they said at half time, look, stop diving in and leaving space in behind. And they just defended what they had to defend. Is that worthy of a man of the match performance? to be honest, I thought Callum McGregor,
Me too.
Matt O'Reilly and DAIZEN MAEDA were all ahead of them. But if you want to give it to Liam Scales, that's fair enough. It's a brilliant performance for him. Is that a brilliant performance overall? I don't care because they won the game.
See Scales and Lagerbielke, they're never a partnership in a million years. And it's like, I can give both of them individually credit for really stepping up in the latter part of that game and just defending with their lives and throwing their body on the line and heading things away and getting tackles in and just getting things out of the box as well as they could. But they don't work together at all. Like,
I'd be happy if I never see them together again.
And it's not. There was just a complete lack of communication between the two. Go back and watch the game if you get the time. Treat yourself, anyone. But the amount of times they both get drawn towards the ball is incredible.
The St Johnstone game,
that's right. So I noticed that. I mean, I'm quite well placed on the halfway line. I'm quite well placed to see the communication between. Mel, you sit in the same place as well. Quite well placed to see the communication between players. And there was a couple of times for some reason, they both get drawn over to the left side. Yeah. They both get caught under the ball. It happened loads of times I say loads, but if it happens 3 or 4 times in a game, that is quite a lot, to be honest. But it happened to St Johnstone game as well. And I noticed that Lagerbielke, and for the benefit of the camera, he gave Scales a kind of shrug, like, what you doing? This is my position. Why are we both here? We're both being drawn to the ball. So together, it doesn't work, but individually, I thought they both deserve credit for their performances there, because it was just a case of, as you say, just get it done, just somehow get the job done today.
Easy to wilt in that, especially after the first half performance from the two of them. 50,000 people, probably not fans' favourites to be in there. Lagerbielke just in the door, Liam Scales in the back door, so he should be out of here, but he's got a reprieve here. And for them to get a clean sheet there, I never seen it coming, to be honest. I thought before the game, we're going to need to score 2 or 3 to win this game. But the way the game played out, it was a Brendan Rodgers masterclass. I think we did some things differently. Greg Taylor was heavily inverted in this game, sat in beside Callum McGregor, which meant McGregor then had the space to roam and just completely dictate the game.
How many times have you seen him dictate games against Rangers? He comes alive in this fixture.
And that's it. This is the captain performance. We all remember in certain games where Celtic were struggling at Ibrox and Scott Brown would do a foul or drive on and get Celtic going. But we've seen Callum McGregor in the game I talked about earlier, when he drove through and the ball breaks to Rogic and he scores in that 2-1 game. Celtic get level after Ramsey had put Rangers ahead that time, and then here, start of the game, he just drove through about 3 or 4 Rangers players, plays a ball out, and you go, he is on it today. If we had worried about his performance before the game, we wouldn't have to, and he was brilliant. He was everywhere, so much so that the tactical genius that is Michael Beale brought in his best finisher at the club after this is a guy, Kamar Roof, who's been there for years, and Michael Beale spent millions of pounds on forwards, moved him into a number 10 position to sit on Callum McGregor. Thought he's your best striker, mate.
They had to do that because for the first half they basically just gave Callum McGregor the keys to Ibrox, and I can't get my head around that at all. I don't know what is going on at Rangers with his approach.
I can explain it.
By all means, the floor is yours.
I've looked into this and I had to look at the stats. I looked at the numbers and I dug a wee bit into Michael Beale's history about why the game played out like that. And just excuse me while I look up my notes. Yeah, Michael Beale's a fraud.
Right.
He's a fat myth. Michael Beale, that's what he is, right? And that's the difference between having a good manager and having an absolute myth in the dugout.
See, this is the whole point, isn't it? Because they have the debates, and I thought Chris Sutton he's what a coup for Sky Sports. Chris Sutton is, by the way.
Nice to see him back in there.
Yeah, safety guaranteed, obviously, this time.
He's paying them back already with his patter on there. He's done it a couple of times, and he's trying to goad Chris Boyd or whoever else is in there, Chris Boyd particularly, though, into saying whether or not they should just sack Michael Beale. And Chris Boyd, I suppose, if I have any sympathy for him at all, he can't, as a Sky Sports pundit, be sitting in the studio saying, yes, they should sack Michael Beale. That's not really his position to do that. So he just sort of flubs it a wee bit. But the idea that this isn't a debate is ridiculous, because I heard, was it Barry Ferguson as well, being called a cheerleader? Surely everyone's...
No, don't let him take a breath.
Surely everyone has seen this contest doing the rounds as well. But Barry Ferguson was saying you can't sack someone after 4 games, which is, again, one of those weird Rangers Michael Beale lies, because it's actually about 8 games they've played so far this season, isn't it? So you can't sack a manager after 4 games, but it's not about the number of games, it's what he's doing. It doesn't have a clue what he's doing. Why on earth would you ever turn up to a game against Celtic at home, a decimated Celtic team, and just think, well, Callum McGregor, don't worry about it, let him do whatever he wants for the first half, and eventually we'll drag a striker in to basically just sort of follow him around a bit. The guy doesn't have a clue what he's doing. It's that, and it's launching the ball, giving the ball to Goldson and Tavernier and booting the ball as hard as they possibly can up the pitch. It's inexplicable from
The
Rangers.
fact that this guy's managed to bumble his way into the Rangers dugout is extraordinary for me. And it wasn't so long ago we were listening to Michael Beale and we made fun of him on this podcast. He was taking credit for Glasgow Derby victories that when he was like first team coach or whatever position he had at Rangers.
Gianni.
He was saying things like, we went invincible, or we won 6 of the last 8 Glasgow derbies or something, and all that sort of stuff. Now it's his first Glasgow derby. Now he's disowning the games where he was actually the manager. See if you're a Rangers fan and you still think this guy's got it, or if you work in the press and you think this guy's got it. Not a chance. That is what happens, Melly, when a good quality manager with a game plan who can motivate his players, who can get performances like that out of the likes of Liam Scales, turns up against a fat car salesman who
body shaming again, which
absolutely.
I hate.
A jelly deal eating car salesman who's spending £6 million on players that can't even get a start.
Yeah, the Cockney banger got showed up for what it is, isn't he?
Drives to training listening to Chaz and Dave, goes home and watches Only Fools and Horses. It's racist. We're going to be issuing a statement tomorrow apologising to all Cockneys worldwide.
No, I think for this season I've not taken an interest, but for some reason I've watched 4 Rangers games, so I got to see the Kilmarnock game, I got to see the game at the weekend there, and the 2 games against PSV. That's unless they're playing Celtic, I rarely watch Rangers, but I've seen these games because I want to see what he's doing here, and it's terrible tactics. He's brought in this sort of 4-4-2 diamond and has no players that can take somebody on or with no pace, and it just stifles it all in midfield. He's expecting all these midfielders to do it. He sort of went with a 4-3-3 at the weekend, allowing Callum McGregor the space, and I don't know what he's doing, because it just seems to be give the ball to the fullbacks and get them to get the ball in the box as quickly as possible, or give it to your centre-halves and shell it up. Ridiculous tactics in Scottish football for a guy that's coached in Brazil and all that. I don't see what the identity of Rangers is. I rarely can think of a Rangers team bar Dick Advocat that plays good football, but now when this guy came in, it was he was the brains behind Gerrard, he's going to have it all his own way, coached in Brazil and all that, and I see nothing of that. I see nothing of an identity from Rangers. You can go, do you know what, they do that absolutely brilliantly, or they do that really well. It's pathetic tactics of just launching balls up to big guys. We've seen it at the start of the summer when all the targets 6 foot plus, and we know how this is going to go, but that all falls down when you don't have a plan. If that isn't working, you can't just bully your way to a league victory. It's not going to work in this day and age. You need to back it up with some football, and he can't do that. And when the other team, Celtic, have players in positions that they can just pop the ball around you, he doesn't have an answer for it.
No. And partly helped with the fact that DAIZEN MAEDA played tremendously, did a tremendous job on that side. But I just want to stick on Callum McGregor just for a wee bit longer, because there were some doubts over Callum McGregor's performances recently, and just the way he stepped up and controlled that game. And Rangers did try and do a job on him in the second half, that's true, but he was still getting plenty of luck, and he was everywhere. This is the Callum McGregor at his best for me, Stephen. Everywhere, all at once, ready to play the ball. He's overtaken it off Greg Taylor at left back, pops it, and then he's taking it off midfield, off Matt O'Reilly, and he's moving across the pitch, just doing wee give and goes all the way up. Or he's playing, at one point he played a cracking ball, sort of, it looked like with outside his foot, down for a bada run on for. He was just doing it all. That
was the one that led to the chance that Kyogo should have done there. With I think Kyogo, we'll come back to Callum McGregor, but that just, well, it's in my head. I think he just get caught in 2 minds. That was the one that the near post, he tried to flick it to the back post. I think he might have just seen the post. Maybe I'm too far beyond it. Maybe it's too far beyond it to wrap my foot around it. Maybe I'll try that. It was a strange one. Bad decision making at times, Celtic. I thought that it could have been more, and that's to Celtic's credit. Again, like to turn up with that team, and we're coming away thinking we could have 2, 3, 4 goals or something in that game is really remarkable. And again, they should be ashamed of themselves. But Callum McGregor stepped up is exactly the right term to use, because he hasn't been good this season, and Callum McGregor knows more than anyone really, or as much as anyone, that it hasn't been good enough this season. He will be aware, as much as the fans are, that there are standards at this club, and the St Johnstone game, the Kilmarnock game, and even the 2 wins so far weren't up to it. They weren't up to the standards at all, and Callum McGregor wears that all over his face when he's talking to the media. When it comes to it, he's very, very honest, always has been. He was the one who was talking to us straight during the COVID season and all that. So Callum McGregor, he doesn't sugarcoat things, and you can tell when he's not happy with the level of performance that Celtic are turning in, and particularly him. There's no way he's chuffed with what he's turning in as such an important and decorated Celtic players. So to turn up to Ibrox and put in that, it might be a trite way of putting it, but a captain's performance, a proper leader's performance in the face of such adversity. And again, we're laughing about it now, but it just seemed like a total...
It takes that. I think you're right, but we're laughing about it now because of the way they played.
Yeah,
because everyone stepped up and played their part. Yeah. And that's why we're sitting here having a right good laugh about it on a podcast. But it could have gone so differently.
Yeah.
It could have gone so differently. And I think part of the Celtic performance... Rangers must have found it quite difficult because they probably in their heads thought, right, this is probably going to be a bit of a pushover for us. And then when Celtic start to get a grip of the game, for large periods of that game, Rangers looked like the away team. They couldn't cope with the way we were knocking the ball about. They couldn't cope with MAEDA's pressing. Matt O'Reilly, I thought, was brilliant. And that's the sort of performance that can really kick a season on. You know, all these questions that even they might have had internally, when you come away from Ibrox with a performance and a result like that, against all odds, it can really kick your season on.
Yeah, and look, the fact that there's not a single Celtic fan in there, there's just 50,000 people against you, but that can go against you when Rangers are being absolutely dominated in midfield. And look, Celtic didn't create too many tremendous chances. There was a point in the first half where I thought we really needed to take one of those chances for this to be on top, but not creating chance after chance. There was the odd chance here and there, decent chances, but just the way we're popping it about, I was growing more and more in confidence because I thought, we can play football again, and we haven't seen that recently. And as you're saying, Callum McGregor, he was just dictating it, and I don't mean with the ball as well. When he was popping it back to somebody, he would be telling Greg Taylor to pull in here, so it was creating space for somebody else. And the way he dropped off just allowed the ball to be bypassed him into Matt O'Reilly, and Celtic were away. It was just a brilliant performance for him. Rodgers got the tactics spot on, but maybe controversial or not, I don't think we learned a lot about Celtic here, to be honest. I still think we played well and we suffered, and we've learned, look, do you know what, in the Champions League we'll be able to grind it out sometimes, but going forward in the league, a lot of the questions we had about the performances, St Johnstone, Kilmarnock, I don't know if they've been answered yet because we'll rarely get a game like that.
Yeah.
The rest of this, there's still going to be issues that Celtic need to address, but for here, right now, that's tremendous. And look, the St Johnstone and Kilmarnock games were terrible, and I feared the worst going in there, and Celtic really opened their season and went that this is us back. Brendan Rodgers, I'm back, and I think this is a result where Celtic can kick on. I said last week, I think I mentioned it on the build up of the Breakfast of Champions, come Monday we'll know where we are, we'll know Champions League draw, we'll know what squad we've got, and we'll know what this result is, and then maybe the season starts from there. I was wrong. The season started on Sunday. We know where we are in the Champions League. We know what players we've got. And now we've got a big result to hang our hat on. And we've got a 4-point gap after 4 games in which we've already dropped points. That's tremendous. And it puts them right on the back foot. Maybe a bit too early because I don't want them to sack BEALE too early.
That's the worry, isn't it? The worry is that they bin him because you really want to keep him around. He's on a 4-year deal, so it'll take a lot of cheddar to get rid of him.
They should be ashamed of that.
They should be ashamed of that as well. I think there's a theme developing this podcast. Public service announcement. Attention all my bearded troops out there from stubble to mane. If you didn't already know, Manscaped now sells beard products. You heard that correctly. The leaders in below the waist grooming changed the game with their Beard Hedger Pro Kit. And now they're going a step further with their brand new Handyman, an electric face shaver for quick and convenient way to achieve a clean shaven look. Whether you're going to sharpen up your neckline or give your face a smooth finish, the Handyman has got you covered. Go to manscaped.com and use code TIMS for 20% off and free shipping. It's time to go from 5 o'clock shady. Yeah, baby.
No one likes a weird beard, so say goodbye to all your stubble trouble with Manscaped's Beard Hedger. The Beard Hedger is a high-tech piece of art in a travel-size package with a long-lasting battery, universal charging and a strong motor. Your face is your first impression and your beard is your most important accessory. So make sure you have the right tool for the job with the Beard Hedger. Looking for something, dare I say, smoother? Look no further than Manscaped's new Handyman Face Shaver.
Hey Stephen.
Yes, Jamie?
You've got a travel size package. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code TIMS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code TIMS. Hit the refresh button with Manscaped. We've not played Super VARIO World this season, so we'll just drop the jingle here.
Yep.
VAR. Right, so Super VARIO World, first VAR call of the season. Don Robertson got the look. That's a ballsy call.
Yeah.
That's a ballsy call. I thought initially, Lagerbielke, Stephen, stayed on the ball too long, and he did. He did stay on the ball too long, and I thought, God, he's been caught here. I wasn't giving it as a free kick, but on the second viewing, and then when the rule was explained to me, for me, clear as day, free kick. Goal should have been disallowed. Whether or not VAR called it back due to not being clear and obvious, which is what Rangers have disputed, obviously.
I love how they've actually taken it to the SFA on Monday.
Yes,
actually done it.
I like clockwork, isn't it? Just anything to appease the 50,000.
Performative, that's exactly what it is.
But it would have been picked up anyway on the goal review, because they would have just rewinded the tape to see if there was any fouls. But I think once it was explained to me, it clear as as clear a foul as you're going to get.
Exact same journey for me. I think I was surprised when it was chopped off at the time, because I thought it would be the easiest thing in the world to just give that, because it is one of those weird grey area contentious issues where, yes, but the attacker has planted his foot and it's actually him. It's actually Lagerbielke who's kicked him. So in actual fact, it's a foul the other way around. But once the wording of the rule is explained, then it's no longer even remotely controversial, because you can tell it's not, because it's no longer about, oh, that's never a foul, because the rules, you can't really just say, well, that's the rule. I disagree with the rule. That the rules are the rules. I mean, I'm saying the word rules quite a lot here.
There is one guy who...
he's to come, So all that's left after that is to say, well, it's a ridiculous rule. I don't agree with it, because, the game's gone if that's a foul. But it is. I mean, you're just discovering that this is a foul because it doesn't suit you. And Neil McCann, you've just brought up...
King of the rule book.
What a performance it was.
Dragged the rule book onto telly.
Yes, so a guy who infamously... I think he had a literal physical rulebook on telly with him to state that he was right over a rule. Can't remember the incident, it was years ago now, but has now decided, many years on,
get a new rulebook.
Literally get a new rulebook. This rulebook doesn't suit me. Launches it theatrically out of the studio and wants them all torn up and better suited to Rangers, because it didn't go for us this time. It's insane.
Michael Beale contestant, he's doing the Dessers had his leg planted, the defenders kicked him. Just lies.
Well, he's got previous for it. Do you remember the Jota handball? Jota handball at Celtic Park as well that led to Kyogo's goal. So that's he's got previous for that. When it was told, I've heard, it was probably Sports Sound, I assumed, that I was listening to, and I heard it explained to Michael Beale's face about that face about the rule. It was explained out to him. The journalist, whoever it was, did a good job of telling him. Actually, if you read into the writing of the rules, this is why it was a foul, and he just said, I just think it's harsh.
He's a deeply unserious individual, Michael Beale, and I don't mean he's funny. I just mean there's nothing to take seriously.
There's no substance to him whatsoever. He's just a blagger, to be honest. He just seems like a guy who's bluffed his way into this job because he's got famous pals. Steven Gerrard has got him that job, and I can't believe he's there. I honestly can't believe it. It's like,
remember they used to compare it with Ange Postecoglou? How's he getting on?
I know. Remember Ange shat it and ran to the English Premier League to get away from people. He's like that. Do you remember that guy from like the 90s or the early 2000s who used to turn up in like team photos? He famously got onto like a really massive game for Man United and just stood as if he was part of the team. That's Michael Beale for Rangers.
I think he feels lucky.
He's just worked his way somehow. He just bluffed his way into this job, and I genuinely can't believe he's there. It's a comparison I've made a number of times, but it bears repeating. He is their Gavin Strachan. He's not even their John Kennedy. No. Gary McAllister, who's been just forgotten about now. He was the assistant manager under Steven Gerrard. So they went one under him and appointed him as the first team coach of a still relatively major European football job. And they've just got this guy out absolutely. There's nobody.
Giovanni Van Bronckhorst took them to a European final.
That's another one I've started now. I'm on a roll, right?
Let him go.
But the fact that he was allowed. Last season, the fact he was allowed to just outright completely disrespect and throw that guy under the bus. We're allowed to do that. We're a Celtic podcast. We laughed at Gio Van Bronckhorst.
Nobody slags Gio but us.
Exactly. We slagged him too. But the fact that he was, I think it was after the Aberdeen game that they lost, Liam Scales, who has been mentioned several times so far, he scored that incredible goal, the cross from about 40 yards, right? He came out after that game and blamed Giovanni Van Bronckhorst for the ills of this season. The problems of this season started before I got here. It was about 5 months into the job. So the fact that it's only taken till now for Rangers fans to finally see through this absolute facade of a manager that I'm disappointed that they finally have, but I'm amazed that it's taken this long.
I'm disappointed it's happened so early in the season because they will get binned before Christmas.
Do you remember he came in, he was going to Rangers pubs and he was talking about bringing back the suits and all that. They all just swooned over that. It was just love hearts in the eyes. As soon as he started talking about suits and shoes, that was him.
He looked pretty sharp in his suit. Standing on the touchline, I've got to say.
Yeah.
Really?
He's been showing up again. His role of honour is getting really poor, isn't it? He's got that one game against Celtic where the league was wrapped up. Bar that, lost the League Cup final, lost the Scottish Cup semi-final, drew at Ibrox when they had to win, lost games that they had to win. He's just not got it. He's just not got it. The PSV game, comprehensively beaten, absolutely shredded by PSV, who are a good team. But going into this game, it was if you don't win this, where do you go from here? Because Celtic finished that game with Ralston, Lagerbielke, Scales and Bernabei at the back. Celtic fans would probably want 3 of those 4 replaced if they could have got their way in the transfer window there. And it was a patchwork Celtic team with guys the subs brought on that are just in the door or have barely played for Celtic, and Celtic were comfortable in the victory. And not even that, I was looking at Celtic.
It might be the worst Celtic team I've ever seen go to Ibrox at the start. Definitely more likely rather to be the worst that finished the game. But I certainly since doing the podcast, but certainly since watching Celtic, I would struggle to think of, I'm not going to name names because it's a bit unfair, but I would struggle to think of a worst Celtic 11 starting a game at Ibrox.
Oh, definitely in the last 10 years or since we've been doing the podcast. It's our birthday today, isn't it, lads?
So it is.
Is it?
9,
Yes.
8. I think it's 8 years, but this is our 9th season.
Because starting a podcast in September,
Yeah.
It's exactly when you want to start it.
That's our football podcast that started on the 4th of September. Yeah.
So thanks, Michael, for the wee birthday present. But
it's his birthday,
as well.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
who's having a better time, do you think?
So it was great to see him get tactically outclassed, outfought, and again showing up again, and then infighting in the stands as well.
Do you notice he had an awful lot to say about Ange Postecoglou? Right, he loved that little
He's
barb.
just got an awful lot to say.
But he's not an awful lot to say about Brendan Rodgers, and I think that's because he knows, doesn't he?
Daddy's home.
Daddy's home.
I've seen it argued hilariously because, again, if you've not been absolutely lapping up all the screenshots from Follow and all the different pieces of media, go and treat yourself. Again, if you've already seen it all, do it again if you've got a few hours here. Right? But I've seen it argued that, do you know what, the Tims really hate Michael Beale, so he must be doing something right. I like that about him. Fine, cool. Stick David Tan on the ducket next time. Do you know what I mean? That's me. Is that the qualification? The Tims absolutely hate him, so I keep him.
There is an agenda here, but you know, it doesn't really matter. Right, next up, DAIZEN MAEDA. I thought, again, absolutely crucial to that Celtic victory. Crossing, absolutely wild. DAIZEN, absolutely wild. It seems like every game he's got a left foot cross that ends up out for a throw in or a bye kick at the other side. But is pressing absolutely relentless, did not give them a minute. In the second half as well, all over Todd Cantwell. I suppose what I'm saying is there's so many reasons about the pitch why Rangers didn't have a good game. It wasn't just that their manager's an absolute fat myth. It's just that Celtic players individually kept control of the ball, or in Daizen's case, back to that relentless pressure machine that we need them to be.
Yeah, and I think they're not internationals, are they? So Cantwell and Tavernier will be maybe going a wee trip this week, and they'll just see any bald man, they'll go, oh, because every time they got the ball,
watching this?
Every time they got the ball, DAIZEN MAEDA was there. It was relentless. I think Ange spoke about it. It's the recovery speed he gets. So after he does a sprint, he can sprint again just straight away, and just the utter work rate that the guy put in was exceptional. When he got the ball, totally different story. It was pretty terrible all in all, but these are the games he is built for. Games like this where you need somebody to keep their defence back or stop them, and he was absolutely brilliant. What a performance from him. He'll be invaluable in these type of games. He'll be invaluable in the Champions League, but like again, St Johnstone and Kilmarnock games, maybe not so much, but the guy is a unique player. I've never seen a player like him, and I absolutely love him. He's just built for this, and he will not stop running for you. You can just put him out there and know, like I always say, see if you're having a bad game, make sure the guy up against you is having a bad game, and he is the best I've ever seen at that. Essential to these games, and long may it continue. I suppose that not everyone
Dyson isn't everyone's cup of tea because he does have those shortcomings going forward. He's not necessarily the most technically gifted of players, but I would say that he had some lovely pieces of play as well. There was one time where he was out on the left, he just sort of slalomed in between a couple of players, drew a foul and got Celtic out of a bit of pressure. So it's not, I don't want to draw that sort of distinction where he runs about a lot but he's terrible with the ball at his feet. That's not true either. It's just he does lack that, whatever it is, piece of
cutting edge,
cutting edge technical ability when it comes to the crucial moments going forward in the final third. He just does lack that, and it is a pattern where he just massively overhits these crosses. It's not what he's good at. But see, when it comes to just keeping Tavernier in their half, no one can do it. I mean, you could maybe sort of roll your eyes at that and say, but big deal, he's crap. But I mean, he is their biggest threat by a mile. By a mile, he's their biggest threat.
I'm not defending Tavernier here, right? But they want his head on a platter. And I think, see if you stop playing him, he contributes to all your free kicks, most of your assists, and he chips in with about 15 goals a season. He's your best player. Like, by all means, don't let me stop you. Bin the guy. I don't know who your backup right back is.
With Sterling, who we saw at left back, and that was terrible.
My point is, he's an important player for them, so it's a valuable contribution from Dyson.
Hugely, but whatever you think of Tavernier, you can sort of sneer at the number of penalties he scored and all that. I'm not going to make the case that he's an amazing world-class player, but he's a threat. He's definitely a threat. He's given us bother before. Particularly, that free kick, granted that's not from his own creativity, but that free kick he scored at Celtic Park not so long ago was a great goal. So he is a threat. But he's not with Dyson around. It just isn't. He's just completely nullified, and he is forced into doing the thing that he doesn't like doing, and that's defending. So if that's taken out of the game for Rangers, if Tavernier is no kind of threat, what else have they got? Genuinely, I mean, I suppose that's a debate over whether they have terrible players, and there's a bit of that as well, or whether those terrible players are being made to look even worse by Beale's tactics, because they're not telling me that the players who, regardless of their overall ability, have some sort of professional pride about them. They don't want to see Callum McGregor just strolling about at Ibrox doing whatever he wants.
Without a plan.
Yeah, that's my point. That's my point. Yeah, there's no way that the players want to be watching a show like that from McGregor and doing nothing about it.
Beale's on there moaning about. This is the thing. So a couple of months back, this is the biggest rebuild is going to be seen in this club. I think we need to bring in 9 or 10 or 12 or 15 players. And then he's on the press conference bleating about how everyone's you're all talking rubbish about how much I've paid for my players. I've only paid 13 million for 9 players. You shouldn't be moaning about things like this. You're a fighting age male. You're a combat aged man. You should be out there on that dugout making some moves in your team. You're not being outmanoeuvred by Brendan Rodgers and a half-crock Celtic team.
That is 100% what he was doing at half-time as well. He was like, we're struggling here, queuing up all these Andrew Tate motivational speeches and all that. Have you ever seen that hilarious, idiotic video of Andrew Tate where he's got his top off and he's just pacing back and forward? But he's like pacing back and forward, and that's the whole video, smoking a cigar. I bet that Beale took all the players in at half-time, sat them all down and made them watch them watch him do that.
What he had the that speech from Any Given Sunday, the Al Pacino one. Look to them. He had that printed out in a bit of A4 and a sweaty bit of A4 that'd been in his back pocket, and he just started reading it off a sheet. No, I want to keep on the Celtic, and I was going to wait to then, but I'm just going to bring up Kyogo right now because I've talked myself into a cul-de-sac. We did a little video, the bestest Larson, and it was available on Patreon, but spoiler alert, the winner was, who was the winner?
Edward
was the winner. I'd said controversially Bellamy. Doesn't matter who we all picked, the answer is Kyogo.
Yeah, it is fairly undeniable now. I mean, you could make the only thing that goes against Kyogo is that he is spending his peak years in Scotland, whereas the other ones have gone on to play in top 5 leagues. But I don't care about that.
Larson spent his peak years in Scotland.
Yes. Yeah, well, but I'm talking about Larson isn't in this debate. When he goes up against everyone else to be the best since Larson, those guys went on to play, fairly, reasonably successfully at higher levels. That's the only thing that goes against him. And as I said, frankly, I don't care about that because it's what they do at Celtic that matters. And Kyogo is now fairly undeniable. What's that? 6 goals he's got against Rangers, and this is a quote strong Rangers as well. So there's none of that stuff about how Dembele played against absolute jobbers, Clint Hill and all that.
What do you think their next lie is going to be? Because they do love a lie to back things up. So up until very recently, the lie was Beale's first game, which stuck about. In fact, I listened to a Rangers podcast just to entertain myself.
Of course.
And they actually said Beale's first derby defeat. They genuinely said that. That's how they opened their podcast. You can go have a wee listen if you want. I'm not going to give them I'm not going to give them a plug. But not to derail the Kyogo chat, but it did remind me that there's going to be a lie emerger from this, isn't there? There'll be some sort of lie emerger, so just keep your eye out for that. Anyways, carry on, Stephen.
Extraordinary. What a player. He, as I say, he made some bad decisions elsewhere in the game. Should have done better. Should have squared it. Maybe should have taken shots on a wee bit earlier. There was one that kind of got stuck under his feet. But when it counted, he stepped up once again and smashed home arguably the hardest chance he had in the entire game. Rattled it home. What a finish it was. That amazing sound that came off the net. See that wee sort of clunky sort of...
The McGregor at Hamden sort of.
Yes, exactly. So it's what a satisfying sound it is to hear when a goal goes in like that. It's such a aesthetically and orally pleasing goal, a brilliant goal. And credit to O'Reilly for that as well, because he got the header back in. Terrible header from Goldson, of course. The one thing you didn't want to happen was to head it directly into the middle of the park.
That's not a defender's header.
No, definitely not. O'Reilly's header reminded me of Lustig's header for Edwards' goal in the treble game at Hampden. Just headed it straight through the defence and Edward ran through and scored. But Kyogo's finish, just absolutely brilliant. And Butland has been something of an upgrade on McGregor so far. Difficult not to be the ghost of Alan McGregor towards the end of his career.
He's in the crowd.
A very, very angry ghost of Alan McGregor. But he was getting absolutely nowhere near that. All 6'5" of him, or whatever he is, the big hero they've got in goals. He was getting nowhere near that, because what a finish, what a striker, and what a player he's been for Celtic.
McGregor was in the stand, definitely going to his pals. Definitely going to his pals. He's fucking, I would have saved that. Shite.
No chance, and I think it's one of those chances where if he takes another touch, it's probably a better chance he's going to miss it, but just that instinct that he just took it on, smashed it, and it's past the keeper before he's got a chance. He had a good few chances in the game where you think, oh come on man, you're the one guy we rely on, but I still think Celtic are slowly getting there, but there's just a lot of poor decisions being made, and I think that will come. I think under Ange Postecoglou, if one winger got the ball, the striker and other winger knew where they had to be. Everybody knew where they had to be, depending on where the guys were. We're not quite at there at Celtic. I think Abada, Maeda, Kyogo all made wrong decisions in their finish and their execution. But the best thing about this is that can come, and we've got this victory now. Rangers have been working on this since January, or whenever Beale came in. They brought in Cantwell, they brought in Raskin, the midfield dynamos that are going to dominate Celtic. Didn't see it again, and in the summer he went out and he got all his own players. So he's got his own players now, and that's what they serve up, and they can't handle Kyogo. They simply can't handle him. Whether Celtic create chances for him or like that one, it's just pure instinct. They can't handle him. It's like the goal you're speaking about earlier, Stephen, the Jota handball, as Michael Beale put it. That just comes about, and the guy's there at the right place, the right time. You can't buy that elsewhere. Celtic will never be able to replace this guy. He's unbelievable. 6 goals against Rangers puts him right in the Hun scalping. He's tremendous, and I love watching him. And I think hopefully we'll get Celtic to see Celtic settle down now, get some new players in, and create more chances for the guy, and he can have a smashing season again.
I do think this team are going places under Brendan. I have maintained that, it's just going to take time to click, and it's not been looking good. But games like this, you do start to think, right, look, Brendan knows what he's doing here. The guy's a winner, and he said after the game, he said, I told the players they need to go out. They're all young guys. They need to go out and play like men, and that's the sort of performance that Brendan Rodgers can inspire in his team. Do you know what I mean? The thing is, he's good at getting these performances out of players that you think maybe don't have it. But with a player like Kyogo, it's just about utilising the absolute bit, because you can trust Kyogo. Yeah. You feed him the ball and he's going to score in most situations, and it's about just getting the absolute best out of him. You wonder how much coaching Brendan really needs to do with a player that good.
No, sorry to jump in there, but they don't know where he is. It's all instinct with Kyogo. I don't think there is necessarily a lot of coaching to be done there.
Go do Kyogo stuff.
Do some Kyogo shit.
Just go and do your thing. That's all you need to do. Same with Callum McGregor. It's kind of just go and do your thing, where there's probably other players where he's got to be quite specific with them. But with Kyogo, I think that chance is the hardest one out of the ones he had, and he's there to do it. It's not one where Celtic have broke Rangers down or they've created a chance for him. It's just sheer instinct, and they simply can't handle it. The other chances, he doesn't do too well. But what you're saying about Celtic, I still think it might take a wee bit longer to get Celtic where Brendan Rodgers wants to be, and I think that's just a combination of things. I still don't think we've got all the players in we need, to be honest. I don't think we've got the time with the international break now, straight back into it, and then there's Champions League games. I think that'll interrupt it, but I think once Celtic settle down come maybe November time, I think you'll start to see Celtic in it, because there was still a lot of concerning things in the game for me. I think Rangers got into positions too easily for us. I thought things like Greg Taylor, renowned for being calm on the ball and passing, his passing was abysmal, and that's the thing that he's well known for. So I think we still need to sort something in there.
It was something like Cantwell, I found in the second half particular, he turned up in our box easily 5 or 6 times during Rangers attacks, completely unmarked. Like, we didn't know, I don't know what there was a change in Rangers shape and they were trying to do something differently. Whatever happened, Cantwell found himself inside our box unmarked so many times, and I thought to myself, these are the things you need to sort of be more aware of. But again, it was a bit of a makeshift team, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, that's I was just coming on to. Look, it's going to be difficult because we've got so many injuries and we've got the Champions League. And if we play like we did on Sunday against any team in the Champions League, we'll get punished. But they're not Rangers, so it was fine, as shameful as Rangers were. But the great thing is Celtic get the victory here. It can kick on the season and we can look to see, right, we can do that with this patchwork team. Imagine bringing in Carter Vickers, Novotski, fully fit Alistair Johnson, Rio Hatate, Palmer, Yang, Tillio, O's back. Celtic will start to get options back, so I think Celtic will start to settle into it, but there's still a lot of work needing done. I still think there's that creative spark missing, but to go out there and get a victory with that team, thank you.
I thought Home looked good when he came on.
Yeah, there was a little bit of maybe.
Is there an argument for him maybe starting ahead of Turnbull now going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I give the credit to everyone who was involved in that game, in that win, and digging in and fighting for that victory. The credit they deserve, but I don't know if it necessarily says much going forward. I think
it's more about Rangers than it does Celtic.
Well, yeah, I think like. This represented Celtic sort of being back rather than an explosive start to the season or anything like that. I think we can sort of compartmentalise that game in the achievement it was. I don't think it necessarily says much for Scales or Turnbull or guys like that going forward. I think that as soon as players come back, you've listed several. There's Bernardo as well, which we've all kind of forgotten about.
Phillips.
Yeah, exactly. So once these guys come back fit, then I don't think they'll keep their places just because of what happened on Sunday. Home looks really.
He looks good.
Yeah, he does. He looks like a really excellent acquisition. Very, very comfortable, very confident presence. There was maybe a little bit of over eagerness between him and Yang and guys like that who came in to sort of, Yang. He's like a Doug chasing the ball or something. Like just you can't stop him. But once we sort of hone that, once we sort of harness all that energy into something,
the best guy to do
exactly into something pretty effective and useful, I think he'll be unstoppable in Scotland. But
he turned that Rangers defender inside out about 4 times, then fell. I was like, do you know what? That's okay. You're allowed to do that.
It will be a case of honing that though, because we need to kind of get a grip of him. He's full of that brand new attacking player enthusiasm just now. We need to sort of calm him down a wee bit. But Yang and Holme, they were making I wouldn't say bad decisions, that seems very harsh, but not quite the right decisions at the right time, whether it was playing someone through or spotting a run on the outside or whatever it was, a cutback, something. They were taking on shots, and O was another one. O played that weird ball over. I saw what he was trying to do. It was the right idea, but he massively overhit it, and Yang couldn't get on the end of it. So once all these things start to click, once these players are, it's the kind of example we used earlier about Scales and Lagerbielke. They'll never get the chance to play together probably again, and they will never develop into a partnership. But these players will. The Yang and Holme, they will all play loads together, and they will start to find that kind of click between them as they get to know each other. They're all relatively brand new players. They're all quite young players, and they're just coming into this team. As much as we are laughing quite a lot at Rangers, it's still a big game. It's still a massive game, a highly pressured environment to go into. So I don't blame them for thinking, especially with the way the last maybe quarter of the game went, where it was kind of backs to the wall stuff. I don't really blame them for thinking, right, we really need to score here, and taking on shots when maybe it wasn't on. So that'll come.
Well, I in that way, I kind of disagree with the Perry a wee bit on the game, or maybe I'm picking you up wrong, but I don't necessarily think you sort of compartmentalise this game, as you put it, Stephen, put it on the shelf, and that then it doesn't really reflect in the end of the season, because I think the team can take so much from this game and carry it on to the next couple of games and the rest of the season. For talking sake, Callum McGregor, no matter how self-doubt starts to come into things, you know what I mean? And Callum McGregor said a couple of weeks ago, I think it was the Kilmarnock game, we can't let this malaise set in. We need to nip it in the bud. Next game, the St Johnstone game. So immediately right away, there's definitely doubt. You know, you're doubting yourself, you're maybe doubting the manager. Then a result like that happens, and Brendan Rodgers can go back at that, like that guy, that meme. Do you know what I mean? Like, look, this is what I can do. Trust me. Trust in me. This is what I can do. Liam Scales, for as limited a player as he is, we now know if push comes to shove, we can rely on him. Because before we were like, that guy can't play for Celtic. Now we know, push comes to shove, we can rely on him. Lager Bielka, you're not going to get a better education than that. No. You know, we're under the cosh for most of the game at Ibrox in front of no Celtic fans. He's going to learn so much there. Joe Hart, we thought, you know, is Joe Hart finished here? I mean, he had to play sweeper a lot of the game.
Yes, bail out those two turkeys ahead of him at times. Yeah,
he was playing, but he was really communicating with them. I think part of the reason those two were so successful was because you've got an experienced guy like Joe Hart behind you, pulled off some cracking saves, came out super quick for the Lammers chance. So there's loads of stuff. There are some players, I know what you're saying, Melly, and I really don't want to spend time naming names because it feels like a shady thing to do, but you're looking at the likes of Turnbull and Taylor, and you're thinking like, did we learn specifically much about these guys? No, but I think there are lots of positives to take from this game throughout the season, and I really do think things like this can kick your season on because everyone's just got a lot more trust in the manager now, and the players are starting to trust themselves.
Yeah. Sorry, just to clear that up, what I specifically meant on the compartmentalise that game is that we're unlikely to see it. Yeah, so we've used it several times now as well. Is that we're unlikely to see that again? Is what I meant. It's not like it's not like there's much to be built upon from that game because of the lineup. There's huge amounts of confidence to be taken from it individually and as a collective. But we're never going to see that lineup again. At least I hope not. Going into May, we'll get the Champions League coming up. If we get that lineup, exactly. So what I mean by that is that we kind of filed that away as a great achievement. But now we've got 6 players to add to this team, and we're probably never going to see it again.
Yeah, I think it's the result can kick on your season. You're right. I think then if the MD had any doubts about the manager player wise, they'll have complete buy-in now. Maybe a lot of fans as well, but the performance again wasn't great, was it? And if Celtic are going to take that team going into the Dundee game or next game, you're looking like, where's the creativity? If you think maybe HOLME should start ahead of Turnbull, fair enough, but Turnbull, HOLME, McGregor and O'Reilly, is that going to create a lot of chances? Is Abada and Maeda, I didn't want to see them on the pitch together again because I don't think they're creative enough. And Lager Bielka and Scales, they were pretty terrible on the ball against St Johnstone. So while we've not learned a lot about individual players, we've learned a lot about the team and the squad, and they dug deep, they suffered. And look, I don't think it would have been a disaster if Celtic had lost that game, if they maybe had taken a bad beating, possibly. But I said before the sort of season and before this game that I thought, look, it's getting to the point where Rangers will probably win their 2 home games against us. We'll win our 2 home games and it'll be at the rest of the games that settle it. Celtic have got a massive advantage now because they've went there without a single fan there and got a victory against the odds when Rangers think they should be really steamrolling Celtic. That was a worse team than that got beat by Rangers 3-0 at the end of last season. So Celtic have went out there, stole a victory deservingly and got out of there.
Deservedly stole?
I think so, because I think everything was against us. Maybe it's just personally because I didn't believe we'd win, but to go out there and get that victory, really do okay, but have so many still deficiencies in the team, I think, real deficiencies, and then think, hold on a minute, by the time the next game rolls around, we could have 3, 4, 5 players back or new players in a couple of months' time. We could have another 3, 4 players back from injury. Squad starting to look good, still has some deficiencies, but doesn't matter because we won 1-0.
So we've got a lot of players to come back, and that's sort of been a theme of this game about how the lineup's going to look really different. Transfer window was weird, wasn't it? I thought, you know, we've got the Champions League coming up, so we obviously had to get reinforcements, and we'll talk about the Champions League group in a minute. I thought, we've not got much time in the podcast to go into the full detail. We're not going to have a full autopsy of the transfer window, but I thought ultimately we paid the price for leaving our business so late, and I thought there were key areas of the pitch that were not strengthened. I thought perhaps left back and goalkeeper were 2 areas, and striker as well. Just
while you're speaking there about Joe Hart and all that, maybe that's why a keeper wasn't targeted, because we weren't really linked to any, but maybe just Brendan Rodgers thinks, look, I just need Joe Hart's experience back there because of it's a new team, it's going to be pretty much a new defence, and we needed him back there, and we definitely did at the weekend.
I mean, maybe, but I just think, you know, it's difficult after a result like that. That's how Celtic get you. It's difficult after a result like that to come on and have a grumble about the transfer business, but squad to me is bloated in certain areas, uneven in certain areas, Stephen, and particularly left back and another striker I think we could have been doing with. And for me, it's unfathomably weird that we leave all our business to the last week in the season. And people say, well, it doesn't matter, you've got the players in now. Well, it does, because we're at the Cup, we draw points in St Johnstone, and we've got players who miss pre-season. Leaving it late is never the best thing to do. I'm encouraged by some of the players we've brought in.
Yeah.
Bernardo looks like an interesting prospect. We've seen what happens when you get guys like that before, similar profile to Jota.
Handsome chap as well.
A handsome chap. I've already said that I quite like Yang. I like Holme. So there's some interesting players coming in. Nawrocki, I want to see more of him. Phillips from Liverpool's an interesting one, emergency guy coming in until January at least. So there's some interesting signings there. Palmer is another one. But again, why we left that so late is curious to me. But we're so heavily bloated in the midfield area. But we've got almost one fullback that the manager trusts on left side.
Yeah, I think it's odd. I'm not unhappy with the transfer window, but I do think it's a strange one. When all is said and done, when it's slammed shut, and it has slammed shut, and you can actually analyse what actually went on, I think it is a bit of an odd one. I think it's too simplistic to say, but we signed 9 players, what you moaning about? But what did we actually do? Is that like 3 centre-halves, 3 midfielders and 3 wingers brought in, as far as I know. I don't know if there are any more than that. But so we've spent 3 months, and I'll admit, as soon as I saw that lineup coming out for the Rangers game, I thought we've spent 3 months doing nothing. Yeah, we've absolutely squandered it. We've wasted it. run about with my arse on fire before the game, absolutely panicking. But I do think it's odd. On the goalkeeper thing, I agree with that. I think Joe Hart will be absolutely fine this season, and he's such a valuable presence around the place. But what I would say on that is that this is his last season, so he'd need to do something about it sometime. Ideally, it would have been now rather than leaving it to the last minute next summer. But maybe that's been overly picky. But I look at the squad now, and I'm only really going on things, quite odd things that don't marry up as far as they've been said. So during transfer deadline day, Brendan Rodgers said something about he was waiting for a number of players being confirmed. Yeah. And then only Bernardo came in after that, and he had already basically all but been confirmed at that point anyway, so there was nothing beyond that. So everyone was a wee bit confused by that. Whether he misspoke, I don't know, but it was...
he said it in 2 separate interviews.
Yeah, so it was a confusing end to it, and now that I look at the squad, it's also said, I don't know if this is actually true or whether people just say it about managers, but they like to work with a streamlined, quite small squad. And it's been said about Brendan Rodgers before, what we imagine a small squad to be is about 23, 24 players. So why did we spend the summer bringing so many midfielders and wingers in?
33 first-team players.
33 first-team players. And see, if you add together the centre-halves in the squad, which, again, was a bit of an emergency, we had to do something there. Centre-halves, central midfielders and wingers alone, that's about 23 players alone and for 3 positions. So I'm not complaining about this. I don't think it was a bad window.
Sounds like
But I'm just slightly confused by it. I'm confused by what the strategy was. I don't know why it was so focused in these areas. And maybe things were afoot that just didn't go, the usual couldn't get them over the line and all that. But
don't buy that.
Yeah, I don't know. And see, again, if you actually break down the makeup of the squad now, you'd be as well not counting Phillips, because he literally is an emergency loan to fill in a gap that nobody saw coming. 4 centre-halves injured at the same time. So that's one chopped off the list that wasn't really planned for anyway. Kwon has come in the same window where Iwata was a compulsory buy. So the 2 of them are now permanent signings at Celtic, adding to quite a lot of midfielders. So it's not that it's a bad thing overall, the window. You can never have, you potentially could have too many good players, but I'm confused by what the focus was, what the strategy was of the window.
There was comments from Brendan Rodgers saying he wanted more power in the team.
That was another one, yeah.
I've not seen that arrive. Yeah. The midfield does confuse me. I've got, look, you might correct me here, but as far as quality midfielders go, right, we've got McGregor, we've got O'Reilly, we've got Hatate, we've got Iwata, who we signed on a permanent deal, J-League Player of the Year last year. You must think there's something about him there. We brought in Holme, we brought in Bernardo. Am I missing anyone here?
Turnbull, McCarthy.
Well, I said quality. McCarthy's never going to play, but we just seem so full in that area now. I don't know how all these guys will want to play. The point is, they'll all want to play, they'll all want to start games, but McGregor's going to start almost every single game. Matt O'Reilly, you think, is going to start the majority of the games. So the rest of these guys are vying it out for David Turnbull's shirt, which is peculiar to me, because you think, based on absolutely nothing at all, just based on the pedigree of all the players, I'm looking at Bernardo going, Portuguese youth prospect, got on loan, same sort of level in his career as Jota was. You'd expect him to fill that slot. Where does that leave everyone else? James Forrest wasn't even on the bench.
No.
So you're thinking, right, well, is he now out of consideration? Is he out of contention? Mikey Johnson, what's happening with him? Signed a new contract. It's odd. The makeup of the squad now is pretty odd, and I think you said, Stephen, you think it'll take a couple of windows to get the squad to where Brendan Rodgers needs it to be, and I think that'll be the case as well. I just kind of a bit like you, slightly confused as to what went down. I wish I knew more. I wish somebody for the club could explain, well, this is why it didn't work out, because if Brendan Rodgers comes into the club as early as he did, and we were all seeing how good it was to get someone in so early, slap bang at the beginning of the summer, Brendan Rodgers comes in. If he says, which I'm sure he did within the first couple of weeks, I want a left back, I just don't see how we can't get one over the line. I just don't see why it's difficult for Celtic to do that.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at the sort of midfielders, and for me it's still going to be O'Reilly, McGregor and Hatate. So you've brought in, 3-4 guys in there, and have you improved? Look, Bernardo might turn out to be good and we get that depth. It might be hard for Celtic to get better players than those three. I can accept that. So does it push Turnbull down? So you've got Holme and Bernardo and then Turnbull, that's fine. But then what about Kwon and Awata? Where are they?
The Awata one's peculiar. I don't see him getting any game. Kobayashi, another guy we've completely forgotten about.
Yeah, so there's plenty of players in there, but come the end of the season, before Celtic lost any players, I wanted a goalkeeper, centre-back, left-back and winger. Losing Jota and Starfelt, I'm happy with the centre-halves, that's fine. The left-back thing hasn't been addressed, and I can't see why not. And we were sort of, I don't think it was coming out the club in any way, but we were sort of told through the press, through forums and all that Celtic were going to spend big, but in reality, nothing changed for Celtic. We kept the same model, and look, that's fine. But see, when we get to the end of the window and we are maybe thinking, look, maybe we're just trying to get different players over the line and it just takes more time, and if we get to the end of the window and we bring in real guys, you think, oh, do you know what, it was worth the wait. But Palmer, Bernardo, Phillips might all be good players, but they would all have been available 2 months ago. There's no way that we ended up at the end of the window fighting to get these players because they weren't available at the start of the window. And that was my thinking. I thought, look, maybe we'll just try to get guys, and then it's taken a wee bit longer. But the longer it went, you're like, we're leaving ourselves so much little time to address everything. These guys might come in and be good, but if I'm looking at what I think might be the best Celtic starting 11 or the best 13, 14, I'm still looking right at my left back and going, we need somebody in there in January. I'm still, despite what I said about Joe Hart, I still think long term and even this season, he still could end up looking very foolish in the Champions League because he is older now. There was a good save with his legs that looked as if he was like,
I remember the one.
He just looked like a robot going down. And so I think it needed addressed. It wasn't addressed. And I look, well, we got that victory, and it papers over all that because we're on a high there now. The transfer business, looking at it a whole, nothing changed for Celtic in the model, but everything took longer than it was under Ange and all that, and it just doesn't look good, especially having a new manager. And you think, get him the guys he wants in. There's no way he's wanting to be bringing on Bernabe against Rangers.
There's no enthusiasm about it. Like I'd said before on I think on the Friday phone, somebody asked us a question about it. I says, look, Lagerbielke could be a tremendous young defender. Holme could be a tremendous young midfielder. We've brought in all these exciting young players from interesting leagues. We've not done the thing that we're so inclined to do sometimes and just go scoop up a whole bunch of loans from England. We've went to all these different leagues, got players who look like they're on the verge of breaking through, and God knows we're not bringing through our own players, so we might as well go and do this. And that's an enthusiastic way to look at it. However, that's not even the message come from Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers is saying, we'll probably need to go back and win He's not saying, oh, look, I've got some really exciting young players here. There's no enthusiasm. And just the last word on it, because people are tuning in to hear about Rangers. It's just, you're right, Melly. It's a weird thing to bring in a new manager and not have the impact signings. This is me. This is my new recruits. This is all my great players, and we're going to assault the Champions League. On which, Stephen, Feyenoord, Lazio, and Atletico Madrid. A lot of stabby destinations there.
Yeah, be careful out there, folks.
Yeah, a lot of stabby destinations there. No, the worst group that we could have hoped for.
No.
As far as Champions League groups go, it's about as best you're going to get, really. I think third is doable.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think it'll be. I feel like I want to wait until the game starts.
Do you get anything for third now in this format?
Yes,
this is the last one.
Currently, this is
Yes.
the last one. Yeah, you're right. So this is the last time we get that parachute into the Europa if you finish third. So
What did Rangers get?
that's
That's right. They got pumped off PSV.
yes, they did. I just don't know where Celtic are in the Champions League anymore. I really don't. I was reasonably happy with what they did last year. It wasn't ultimately good enough to achieve anything. Should have won at least one of the Shakhtar games, at least one of those. But they played well and they gave it a go and went at and gave Real Madrid a bit of a fright for half an hour at Celtic Park. These are all good things. They sound a wee bit sort of defeatist, but I don't know where Celtic are in the Champions League anymore. It remains to be seen, and we've got a new manager, so things might be completely different come the start of it, which is in a couple of weeks' time. Group-wise, could have been a lot worse. I think there were some terrifying looking groups in there. Really, I mean,
Newcastle's group.
Horrifying. Let's be realistic, all of the teams in their current group will be looking at Celtic thinking, ooh, I'll have a bit of that.
Yep.
But we're the pot 4 team. We just need to deal with that. But I think it could have been an awful lot worse. If you had to handpick a team from pot 1, it would have been Feyenoord.
Yes.
Not necessarily Atletico Madrid from the next one, and maybe not necessarily Lazio. But these are all teams that we have played
And beaten.
He played in, certainly beat Lazio home and away. Atletico Madrid are going to be very, very difficult. We've not played Feyenoord for decades and decades. So it'll be interesting. I find it difficult to predict anything. What would represent some sort of success for me is just get a win. Please just win a game. And I know that sounds pathetic and people are like, oh, come on, muster up a bit more enthusiasm in that. But when was the last time we won a game? Was it Anderlecht?
Yeah.
Anderlecht in 2016, I think that was, 2016, 17, yeah. And then at home, it's Ajax. 10 years ago or something like that. So it's not something we do often.
A win does represent progress.
Yeah.
What do you think of this group, Melly?
Well, watching the draw, I thought that would be the ideal group. I think we got down to the last 2 groups and that was the best one we could have got. And then when I sort of think, that's good, that's the best group we could have got. Does it mean I still think we're going to qualify? Probably not, to be honest. I think what you said earlier when you're talking about, look, maybe it'll take a couple of transfer windows for Brendan Rodgers to get his team. Like, what did Ange get? 4 transfer windows or something, and then he's away. So
Brendan assured us he's going to be here for how long?
3 years. I guaranteed he'll be here for 3 years. But just with the way Celtic are, I think they're just constantly going to be in transition. So I think what you need is, like at that game in the weekend, I think if Celtic are going to get anything from any of these games, they'll need everything to go for them. And already we're going into the Champions League without Cameron Carter-Vickers, which means we're probably going to leak goals. We brought in another centre-half to go alongside him, and he's out for most of that as well. So I think it's going to be difficult for Celtic. Like I said, I don't know how fit players are going to be. We're going to be, yes, Louis Palma will be in, but he's didn't even get on at the weekend. You'll have one game against Dundee to get up to speed, and then it's straight into the Champions League. So I think Celtic are going to be patchworking this. I think it will be like Ange's first season in Europe. I think it will be exciting, but I think Celtic will take some beatings. But I'm just looking forward to it now. I think it was a decent draw. I don't think Celtic will win too many games, but like Stephen, if we can get a victory and not get demolished by these teams, but look, the quality in these teams mean you make a mistake or two, you're going to get punished. And Nat Phillips and Lager Bielka and AJ and Graham Taylor. I nearly said that. Greg Taylor.
Hopefully.
Greg Taylor at the back with Joe Hart. I don't see where Celtic are going to conjure up things, but didn't see how Celtic were going to conjure up a victory at the weekend. So trust in Brendan, but he's got his work cut out for him, man.
You can follow Celtic in the Champions League by following us on patreon.com/20minutetims. We'll have lots of extra videos and podcasts and writing all about Celtic in the Champions League all through the season. You can help us also by subscribing on YouTube. If you watch here, more than half the people that watch aren't subscribed, so just hit subscribe. That's an enormous help to us as well, and it doesn't cost anything. But most of all, thanks for watching and listening, and we'll see you next week.